We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. We're going to take your phone calls if you want to jump in. 737-7587. As you see, it's Ask a Sheriff. Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall with us of the Sheriff's Office. And also with us this morning is Jim Gondles, Executive Director of the American Correctional Association. Thanks for coming on. And, you know, the last comment, the caller obviously supporting what you're doing. We're talking about how there's going to be mental health training for the correctional officers in his office. The thing about this then, all right, when it gets started, they get in there and maybe better handle these inmates, all right, and you get them stabilized. What happens to them when they get out, though? I mean, they're getting, hopefully, finally going to get some of this help for their problems then. But when they get out, are they just going to be back on the street self-medicating, or will you be able then, hopefully, if you get them some help, to channel them to some place that keeps them on the straight and narrow?
You know, one of the things that I've always felt that corrections, and I'm just around the country, you know, we've done poorly is we focus on the problem a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this, of addictions or mental illness or whatever, and we focus on our silo. You know, this is what we're dealing with,
right.
and we see changes in people. Sometimes the addictions issues and mental illness and other things, we see improvement. But if the door opens and there's not some connection to the community to follow up that care,
right.
all the work that we're doing, and it's part of our fault, is not going to work because there's no connection in the community to keeping that person.
So where will they go? Okay, right. After these folks get trained and you start handling them better and diffusing situations behind bars, and maybe you get them straightened out, maybe get them back on their meds doing right, and then they get out. Then what do you hope happens? What needs to be done?
And I'll speak to Nashville just a little bit because there is a lot going on. The health department here, obviously responsible for the public health of our community, is under a major initiative to try to bring what is we would call it pre-arrest intervention, right? Pre-involvement with the criminal justice system, because we've fallen into this rut of everybody going to criminal justice or law enforcement. So what the health department is trying to do is to get in front of that problem. And again, it would be a good show one day to invite them. They're doing a lot of work in trying to bring the resources. The governor just funded $15 million for pre-arrest diversion. Okay. That's a really nice thing. And so there's a lot of work going, but what you know is we deal with the post-arrest. And so we're here saying if they solve the problem, it will do away with what we're talking about as far as long-term need. It will take years to do that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to prepare in case that, in case that doesn't happen. But I agree with the caller and yourself. We really need pre-arrest and then post-release intervention, because just while we're here isn't enough.
I agree. Let's take a call from Tamara. Tamara, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I hope y'all are having a better day than this mother is. But I've been blessed that before I strike out to Williamson County Jail to see my eldest son, who's going through a vicious cycle, I just about fell off my house shoes. Tell me what I need to do on my phone where y'all can hear me more clearly.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead. What's the question you have?
Okay. I've got 3 children, and before I even go any further, I'm here to tell you I had the best kids ever come down the pike. I knew it was too good to be true. When they got out, got married, got within their own friends, I almost lost my daughter. At some point, my fear is I'm fixing to bury a child, and it's so close it scares me. Now, I've been, there's no grandparent laws in Tennessee. We'll come back and, hey, how about address that on another show?
Sure, but let me ask you, so are your children dealing with mental illness or drug problems, and you're worried that they're not getting the help they need behind bars?
All of the above.
Okay, all right.
And it's exactly what happened. When they get out of jail, my youngest son, he's a revolving door, and it's just simple charges like driving on suspended.
Gotcha.
Oh, there's issue there. I'm sitting here with a broke spine, a gaping skull, and I got 2 children supposed to be helping mama, but they are in this world that's full of pills. My oldest son and his wife, and how this happens is beyond me, gentlemen.
All right, hang tight on that. And Tamara, okay, she is a loving mother who sees what's happening to her children and sees them going in and out. And that's kind of what I was talking about. They're getting there, and I guess she has, the sheriff there in Williamson County is a good man, and hopefully maybe he'll look at this program. But all these jails, they go in and they come out, a revolving door.
I say this, it's funny you say that. I get that call once a month. Yeah, I had it just a few weeks ago. This is what happened. It's a Saturday night. I'm at my house. The phone rings. It's a local attorney we would all know, a very prominent attorney, who said, Daron, how you doing? Do you remember so-and-so? And who he was describing was a young man who played on my son and his son growing up baseball teams 15 years ago. I didn't remember the name. He described it. Yeah, he played on that team. We went. He's 22 years old, the son, and the parents had called him as an attorney and said, we need help. And so here's the attorney in Nashville and the parents working out through me a way to get their son arrested because they wanted him to receive some mental health. Oh, yeah. That is and that is a real story. And what really Tamara is saying is they're going to die on the streets. They are, through the addiction or mental health or both. And unfortunately, society sees it as, I need to have my son in your care or in some environment where there is at least observation and medication and some institution that's keeping them safe. The families are scared of the individual a lot of times and also scared for the individual. And this country is better than that, but that's where we are. The best treatment you can receive in this community is now in jail for addictions. And
well, unless I mean, now if you have the means, there are clinics across the country. They're very expensive. You know what I'm talking about? Betty Ford Clinic, things like that. But I mean, it's very expensive, and there are some families that have the resources to do that. Otherwise, you have families actually looking to have their children arrested because they figure that's where they'll get their help. Yeah,
and I'm not going to speak for the family. I will just say this family has the means. And all I'm saying is they're scared. It's a Saturday night that this kid is acting out. They don't see him as, they don't know what to do. There's not really the pick up the phone and run down to the mental health center. There's not really that available. You can get someone committed. It's very difficult to do. So really the options are very minimal. And so what it is how do we concoct a way to get them arrested to get them in the system that will then identify and maybe provide care. And I don't think Tamara is saying that, but what she's screaming out is, I need help for my kids. And right now this cycle is going to kill them if we don't get them off the addictions and off. But she would probably also tell you she probably feels better at night knowing that they're in jail versus in the streets in that environment, which I hear that all the time. And we can do better as a society. It's just not, really the avenue to solve addictions and mental illness is not.
No, I agree. Correction. And as we stand right now, there's really nothing more you can tell her, is there? I mean, what can she do right now? There's not much she can do.
I mean, again, our hope is society moves beyond where we are. And again, the story on CNN and the national news, and ACA literally is bringing it to the forefront, saying, look, we need to prepare staff that are going to work in these environments because the liability for the city in case you get sued and to prepare your staff to handle the population, we need to be on the forefront of it.
So you have a willing participant in this sheriff here. So Jim, what is the biggest hurdle to getting this program into other jails and maybe getting it into more prisons? I mean, well, I guess money's a factor there, but I mean, it would be great if you get lawmakers behind this and start mandating the idea of this in jails and prisons.
Well, we have a government affairs guy at ACA, and we're talking to U.S. congressmen and senators about programs like this all the time.
So is there a hurdle? What is blocking it? What's slowing it down?
Well, it's always money. Okay, it's always money, and particularly when it concerns the government. But we're evolving as a profession too, and we're learning new things too, Nick. One of the things that corrections has done in the past, which we've learned is not the right thing to do, is people with mental illness, we put in what we call restrictive housing, but we don't let them out of the cell. And 250 years ago, the Quakers in Pennsylvania formed a facility and called it a penitentiary because you were serving penance. And they'd put people in jail and they wouldn't let them talk to anyone, and no one could talk to them. And when they released them, they were worse off than they were when they came in. Well, 250 years later, we're still making some of those same mistakes, and so we're trying to improve in that regard too by opening the cell door and letting people out and not be locked up all day long without any other human contact except maybe someone giving them food or someone checking on their medical condition. And the other thing we're doing, I think, that we didn't used to have to do, and it's questionable in my mind whether corrections should have to do this, but we're in reentry now, as Sheriff Hall was talking about. Once they get out of the jail or out of the prison, what are they going to do with them? What are we going to do with them? What's society going to do with them? And so we're working on reentry a lot in both local jails and state prisons throughout the United States. And corrections has taken on that burden. It ought to be society's and public health more than it should be corrections. But because nobody's been doing it, corrections is stepping up to the plate to do that.
All right, we'll take a break on that note. We got to do that. We have more phone calls for you. Actually, the show is going quick. We've got our final segment. If you have a comment, jump in now. If you're on hold, stay where you are. We'll talk more right after this. Stay with us.